Welcome to the Real Estate Advantage. My name is Adam. And so here's the thing. Today, a single social media post from President Trump sent ripples through the stock market and the real estate world as well. What was the proposal that he made? Well, he said to ban large institutional investors from buying single family homes. Now, while the headlines are focusing on some sudden drops in like some of the companies like Blackstone stock, I want to take just a quick little breath and look at what's actually on the table here. We're going to separate some of the political talk from the economic reality. We're going to look into whether this proposal could even become law and what these companies actually do in your local neighborhoods when they do decide to come in and buy. And what are the effects of this? So, before we get into all that, let's start looking at just the facts first. Okay, so I'm going to switch my screen here. I'm going to share my screen because this is going everywhere. I'm seeing articles all across social media. My own agents are sending me news articles about this. So let's break this down for just a second. So here is the announcement that was made. Right. So in this announcement, President Trump stated this, and he said that for a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard and doing the right thing. But now, because of the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress, the American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many people, especially younger Americans. It is for that reason and much more that I am immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single family homes, and I will be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. Now, there's a lot to kind of unpack in this, but what does this really say? So, the announcement is saying that President Trump stated this, that basically large institutions and large investors of these institutions he's moving to ban them from buying single family homes. He indicated he would also ask Congress to pass a law to codify it to make this a permanent type ban. Now, in another article I did read that he is going to bring this at the Davos convention in Switzerland. He's going to elaborate on this a little bit more. So he mentioned that he's going to bring more specifics to what this is in his speech at that World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And that's going to happen later this month. So we'll be paying attention to that here on the Real Estate Advantage. So come back and check this out. I'll be covering this more in more detail because it does affect a lot of markets that we're in, right? Being real estate agents. Now, another truth that has happened in this, that there is some major real estate stocks like a big company called Blackstone, as well as another one called Imitation Homes. They dropped significantly in their stocks, between 5 and 9%. And it was almost immediately following the post. And to be honest, this is kind of standard reaction to like what I would call like regulatory uncertainty that maybe enters into the market. Investors, what I have noticed, typically sell first and they ask a lot of questions later. It's just initial response because it's kind of a gamble in the stock market anyway. So they would rather protect their money, sell, ask those questions kind of later. So really, we just need to watch and kind of step back and see what this all means. We really don't know where this is going to go yet. Right. And also what we don't currently have is a legal definition for large institutional investor. So now I will say in the past, similar proposals like this have kind of circulated. They have usually stated that the threshold for that would be like owning 50 to 100 to 1,000 homes in any geographical area. So we don't know the specifics of this yet. But let me show you a just quick graph of the stocks of Blackstone so you can see what's actually happened here. And this is very fascinating because data tells us a lot of information. And let's look and see what happened to Blackstone stock. So this is on Yahoo Finance. And here's kind of where they were at 6 a.m. today. You see as it trends, it just locked in, stayed there at Mount. Right around 10 a.m., 9:30 and 10 a.m., we started seeing a drop, and it started dropping down, right? It dropped $2, it dropped $3, it dropped $4, and it dropped about right there at about 10:35 a.m. And then we move on forward, it kind of leveled off. Now, there's something going on. These investors were paying very close attention to something that they knew. Something significant happened right here that we held this and then all of a sudden started going down. But here's the interesting thing is the moment that Trump made that statement, and it was posted on White House on the Twitter feed as well, is it that he posted that right around 12:44, 12:45 p.m. All right. So right there, it dips again. It drops significantly again. And then it kind of rebounded just a little bit and it hovered in low and it closed out right at that amount, 154. So, and this is all due. And as a matter of fact, it even makes a statement right here. Blackstone BX fell 5.38% after President Trump's proposal to ban institutional investors from buying single family homes, significantly impacting its rental housing portfolio. So this is significant movements. Now, again, this is where emotion plays a huge role in what people do. I talk about this all of the time. So, but now as professionals and as real estate agents, we do need to take a step back and realize a couple things that right now, this is not law. There's nothing going on. This is really just one social media post that's caused an emotional response. We don't really have the facts yet. Now, I'll be paying very close attention to this. So please come back, subscribe, follow, like, and all those type of things. I'm going to be watching this because it does affect our industry. But now let's kind of break this down just a little bit. Let's talk more about how this actually affects real estate agents and your general market. Now, this is not targeting like investors of general homes, right? This is not like if you go out and you buy multiple homes and you're an investor and you're buying residential houses, this doesn't affect you. This has nothing to do with you. So don't worry about that. This ban has nothing to do with that. This is about like hedge funds going in and buying up big blocks of real estate. So now, why the national percentage of these corporate owned ownership? It actually is a low percentage of what these institutional companies acquire. It hovers right around 3%, give or take, different types of regions. I have heard that Blackstone specifically owns about 1% of the actual residential real estate rental market, but they are the largest private, or they are the largest landlord in America. So, and they are buying up more and more and more. So this local impact is often felt more kind of intensely because these firms, they target very specific high growth clusters of real estate. So here is kind of a breakdown of how that concentration ultimately could affect your local market. So what does this mean? How can we observe this and see how this might affect us, right? So here it is. What we're going to call this is, I'm going to say this is the floor price effect. All right. So what does that mean? Well, in a normal market, prices are set by what local families can afford based on their income or their salaries, right? So that would be the floor. So a normal market is based upon that flooring, right? What those families can buy their homes at. When a large institution like these come in, they enter into a market, they bring all cash buying power, right? So when they come up with all cash, that makes it very, very difficult. So what does that mean? Well, because they can close faster, they can skip inspections, they often win bidding wars, even if the offer price is the same as a family that's trying to buy this house. Typically they'll win because their offer looks way better, right? This also creates a floor under home prices. Even if the interest rates rise and families stop buying and the institution keeps the price high, this prevents the market correction that might need to happen in that local area. And that usually typically that correction allows new buyers to enter. So them coming in and buying these large inventory and these large things, this causes a massive effect when we really need to see a correction in the market take place based on the local buying power. So that's a consequence of these type of industries entering into your market and buying real estate. Now, another one that actually does affect your industry as well is what we call the inventory depletion. It's like a one-way valve, right? So residential real estate usually cycles around. A starter home is bought, lived in for roughly 5 to 7 years, and sold to the next family. When a corporation like this comes in and they buy the home, let's be honest, it is typically often removed from the for sale pool almost permanently because they can afford to hold that property for a long period of time and rent that property out. So there's not this large resale. So inventory diminishes. So then competition is more difficult. So inflation can still happen. It becomes that affordability gap is still much larger, right? So what's the result of this? Well, neighborhood losses. It loses their starter home ladder, that ladder that helps the new people that's wanting to move into the market to buy homes. That home ladder begins to get shattered. This forces young families who want to actually buy to actually remain as renters. That's what it does. It forces them to do that, often in the very houses they were trying to purchase because this company was able to come in and buy up properties. The other thing that they do, and this is where it gets very difficult, is they're very sophisticated in the way they handle rent inflation. So think about this. Unlike your mom and pop landlords who might keep rent, kind of the same for a good tenant, like they understand that tenant, they know that person, they have a relationship with that person, and that landlord has that relationship. So they might keep the rent the same for for a tenant that is actually a really good tenant, just to avoid the hassle of finding a new tenant. Well, here's the thing. Institutions like these use automated pricing algorithms. These systems are designed to push rent to the absolute maximum of the market rate every single year, regardless of any tenant's history, right? So there's no relationship there. There's no connection with people. And therefore, that landlord that owns this large institution doesn't have that relationship, and they're running it just on a number. That tenant is nothing but a number. They're not a relationship. And that ultimately affects the market. So what's the result of that? Well, when one large firm raises rent, other local landlords see that new market rate. And what do? They raise theirs too, causing a ripple effect of higher living costs across the entire zip code. That drastically affects home ownership in your local markets. So now there's a community maintenance shift here. There's a documented difference in how neighborhoods are cared for when ownership shifts from residents to distant corporations. All right. So this is another big factor when these institutions come into the market and how they affect it. So when they come in, study data shows that institutional landlords are significantly more likely to file for evictions and often have a much higher rate of code violations compared to local owners. Remember, they don't have as much personal connection with that tenant. They don't have a personal connection with the community, and they don't have a personal connection with the home. They don't care. It's a number. So, because the owner is often in a different state, they may be less responsive to local issues like lawn maintenance, minor repairs, those type of things. And this can lead to a gradual decline in pride of ownership in a neighborhood. That can actually hurt the property values of the remaining homeowners nearby. So you see how all of these things affect a local market? These are drastic changes. These are things that we need to pay attention to. So I say all of that to bring clarity to news headlines. I hope this has brought some of that to you. Let me know in the comments below what your opinion is of this. But I see overall this as a good thing. But will Congress and them pass it? We shall see, and time will tell. Now, there's always more to say, but we can say it in the comments below. If you found value in this, consider subscribing, liking this video, and sharing it with those that are caught in this initial emotion of news articles and maybe they don't pay attention to the facts. Hopefully, this has brought some clarity to this. I'll be monitoring this. Thank you for your time.